Yo YouTube, this is my video for Friday the 11th of April and I'm on my way to a pickup now. The time is 9:15. I left the house at 9 o'clock and I feel quite fortunate to have got this job, because I was not really very well prepared for working today. I stayed up late last night, and so this morning I was not really very with it until about 8:30. And when I looked at the CX app at that point, there were quite a lot of drivers around North Peterborough, and I thought it's going to be a struggle to get a job today, although it is a Friday, so I thought maybe that would make a difference, but I at that point in time I was thinking, nah, not really. There's too many drivers looking for work and there's not enough jobs. My first thing that I did was I looked at the available jobs as a map, and there was one job, the closest job to me was Kings Lynn, which is an hour away. I suppose Peterborough, there was a couple of jobs in Peterborough which are closer, but there's a lot more drivers there. So the closest available job that I think I would have won was Kings Lynn. There's nothing in Boston, Sleaford, Grantham, sort of Spalding, Holbeach, West Beach. And the job going from Kings Lynn was going down to something like Ely. It wasn't very far, so it wasn't really worth me driving an hour to do an hour's job to end up in an area that's going to be quite quiet. So I got myself ready, had made some breakfast, got dressed, and a job came up from Kings Lynn going to Rotherham. It's a small van job, 109 loaded miles according to CX. So I put a bid on of £100, thinking that's not likely to win. There's lots of other drivers that will get that. And my fortune came in that, for whatever reason, I was offered that job about 3 minutes later. So I'm doing a small van job from Kings Lynn to Rotherham for 91 pence per mile, per loaded mile. And I can't really... Sometimes you've been on a job as a driver and you think, oh, I could have gone a bit higher. Or you don't get a job, you think, oh, I should have gone a bit lower. I think I completely got this bid spot on. I don't think I could have got any higher than £100. And obviously, if I got low, I probably would have got it, but that would have been less money for me. So I don't know what happened today, but for some reason, it panned out for me. So I'm feeling optimistic about today. I will have made £100. I'll be in Rotherham, and I probably need a couple more jobs to make this a pretty good week. So far this week I'm averaging £203 per day net of fuel. So if I can repeat that, that'd be quite good. I think I did that same amount last week. I think I did £600 net in total over 3 days. So I might well be, if I've done it 2 weeks in a row, that's not just a fluke then, is it? Hi YouTube. So I am loaded now from Kings Lynn and I'm on my way to Rotherham. I arrived on site at 10:10 and I was collecting half a pallet of bricks, which meant that the guy had to get a fresh pallet and load up by hand 250 bricks. So there was a bit of a delay from the pickup. I ended up leaving the site at about 11:15, so I was on site about half an hour in the end, maybe a tad over half an hour. But I was quite relaxed about it, I was quite calm, and I just did a bit of tidying of the back of the van, and I swept the back of the van and then just relaxed a bit. I did ring the shipper just to let them know that what was happening about sort of 10:25, but I didn't really have any desire or requirement to ask for waiting time on this occasion. I'm just chilling out today, not taking things too strenuously. So it's been a lovely day so far, and I'm on my way to Rotherham. I'm going to be there at my Google Maps is showing a bit of red at some point on the map. So at the moment it's about 1:30 that I'm going to be my drop-off location. The way that I see the job that I do, so same-day courier work, there's one of two routes traditionally you could go down. You could be employed by a company and just do it as a PAYE driver, in which case it's just like any other job. You have a boss to tell you what to do, you're told what to do, you do it, and you get paid a set wage, and maybe you have some holiday pay and maybe a bit of pension. Or the other route is you are your own boss, you create your own company, and you build a logistics business either as a sole trader or a limited company or with a partnership. And basically the idea is then you haven't got a boss, you are the boss, and you need to find customers, and you need to grow and be very mindful of the finances and how you make money, how much you have to charge your customers, how much you need to pay on expenses and what vans and stuff, thinking about van replacement and fuel and all the things that go into running a business, which means that you are on top of things. And in that scenario, you really need to get your own customers, and you need to use the CX just as a backload site or whatever other apps were available at the time you started. But as it turns out, I think CX has kind of won the app wars, and it's now by far and away the biggest and best app for getting same-day courier work. I'll come to that in another note. But I think that with the advent of technology such as smartphones and then the subsequent apps, particularly mapping apps, particularly the communication apps like CX, WhatsApp, accountancy apps, digital accounting, digital invoicing, a third option became available. I don't know when this became available, but this is the option that I'm taking, and lots of people are choosing to take. And it's the third way. It's a way where you don't have a boss, you work for yourself. So I'm self-employed, I work for myself. I'm not told what to do or how to do it, which is really good for my mental health and my self-esteem. But also, I don't have the pressure and the anxiety and the stress of having my own customers, because I'm not trying to run a business in the traditional sense. I'm basically just doing a job, but without a boss, or without a traditional boss. Obviously, my customers to some extent are my bosses, but let's not be too hung up on that. So I get the freedom, flexibility, and the opportunities to work whenever I want to, however I want to, by using the CX app. So that's the freedom, flexibility of being self-employed, but I don't have the anchors, the stress, the ties of having to find my own customers. When I've got my own customers, basically doing everything they say as soon as possible, and then worrying all the time that I might lose them, or they might change their minds, or someone might come in and undercut me. So I don't have to find my own customers to make money. I can do that through the CX app, using the platform that was originally designed as a backload site. And no matter what people say, it was originally a backload site, but it's not anymore. It's now much more versatile than that. And it's opened up for people like myself that third way of working. And I think I've got the best of both worlds. I don't have to deal with demanding customers who need things done ASAP for the cheapest cost at the best quality, and I don't have the worry of losing a customer or trying to find a customer. That for me would be a real problem, real headache. But I also don't have a boss to tell me what to do. And I think this is the thing that I've worked out. A lot of the guidance that you get as a new driver, particularly through social media, comes from a place which is sensible if you're trying to run a business and trying to grow a business. So if you're trying to grow a business, you don't want to have lots of dead miles, because that's wasted time, wasted fuel. If you're running a business, you do need to be very mindful of your vehicle, your asset depreciation. Mainly that's vehicles. But as an individual, just working, just to earn enough money for myself, I don't have any of those particular pressing concerns. Basically, as long as I can earn enough money from the CX, that is a whole other kettle of fish. I don't need to worry about dead miles. Maybe dead miles for me is actually good, because it gets me to a better place, or gets me a better job in the morning than I would have done otherwise. And my vehicle depreciation, I don't care less about that, because I personally think my vehicle is a tool, just like any other tool, my phone or my computer at home. It's a tool to help me do my job. It's not some sort of vanity thing or ego thing. I don't care if it's got the mod cons or if it's got low mileage. I don't even care that much if it's that particularly clean inside. I do take being clean on the outside, I think, does help a bit. Although when it's winter, no one's van is clean. Doesn't matter how often you clean it. Being clean on the inside, I've never lost a job because my van is untidy on the inside. So I have an old van, I eat in the van, I spill crumbs on the floor and more, it gets messy, I just live with it. And no one's ever said to me, oh, I'm not giving you a job because of that. No, I'm not trying to present myself as I don't have liveried vans, so I'm not going to go to someone, they're going to judge my company name for my van. I'm just an anonymous white van driver working for himself. Very, very rarely do I ever tell people my company name that I'm registered with, because no one needs to know it. I'm often working for other people. So I know it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a clean van. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not a priority that I need to worry too much about. I have better uses of my time than trying to clean my van every week. I just need to worry about, can I afford my next van? When this van breaks down, can I afford to repair it? And can I afford to replace it when it does finally kick the buckets? And that's what I need to be concerned about. So to some extent, there is an element of vehicle depreciation I do need to be concerned about, but it's different than, I don't care about the number of miles I do, I don't care about the number of miles I do paid or unpaid. All I care about is whether I earn enough money at the end of the week that I need to live on. That's all I care about. And I am quite careful about knowing how much it costs to run my van. I know pretty accurately what I need to have for my business fixed costs, and I do keep a track of my the main variable cost, which is fuel. So it's not like I'm ignoring the finances, but I don't worry about saving every bit of mile or fuel, and it just isn't something that concerns me, because I'm not doing that sort of business. Now, there is a downside to doing this, which I think is going to be obvious from if you follow me at all, but it's not the downside that I worry about too much. The downside is, because I don't have regular customers that give me high value work, I have to bid on work on the CX that's quite low value and quite low quality to some extent, and therefore it's quite insecure. There's no security of income. So there isn't really security of income if you're running your own business, but there is if you're a PAYE driver. And then the security is also goes as far as long-term security, so retirement planning, health care planning. You have to be really mindful of those things if you're going to do it for sort of a long time. And so it is hard to make enough money, but it's not impossible by any means, and it is very variable, it just fluctuates. But for me personally, I think I have the right character to do this sort of work. I have the right experience from my life, and I have the right attitude to doing it. And I think that's what I think is my edge. I have the right personal qualities that mean I can do this job as a self-employed CX driver. I've reduced my personal expenditure as much as I can, and so I'm able to do that. It's hard to do this job in the way I do it as a full-time career, but it is possible. If you're going to do this, if you're young as a full-time career, you may as well go down the route of finding your own customers and making it proper business. But for someone at the other end of their career, their working life, I think just doing it as a job is fine by me. And as it relates to an end, I just think that the CX enables that as an option for people who are coming to the end of their working life to do a job that pays them money, it's enjoyable to do. You have to be flexible, you have to work hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is something that's feasible. And my last point about this is I've kind of given up now trying to put on an hourly rate, because I think it's pointless for me to do that. The classical thing is people compare jobs to the minimum wage, but I don't want to do a minimum wage job, PAYE job, because that would be horrible on both counts. I'm not earning very much money, and I'm being told to do, and I'm being it almost feels to me like slave labour. So I don't compare my finances to a minimum rate job, because there's so much more to my working than just the money. Money's a big part of it, don't get me wrong. I need a certain amount of money, but I actually have a really brilliant job, and I'm in complete control, and I'm on my own most of the time. Those three factors, I'll pay a lot of money to have those than have to work in, say, a supermarket for minimum price, or something more physical. So I may not earn the same amount per hour as most people in the country. I really don't care. It's really a false comparison. I just need to earn enough money in actual pounds to afford my bills, and that's what I focus on. I don't care how many hours I have to work to do that. It is irrelevant to me whether I'm efficient at doing it or not, as long as I can do what I really love doing and afford to do it. So some of the things I said today I've said in the past, but I just thought I'd try and summarise it in a way that I think made more sense. That is the third way now. There's another way of doing this. You can work for someone, you can work for yourself and get your own customers, or you can do both things, work for yourself and not have to find your own customers. And obviously, like all things, there's ups and downs, pros and cons, but for someone like myself, this is a perfect way of spending my time to earn a living. Right, I'll see you later. Hello there, YouTube. So I have finished my first delivery, which was to Rotherham, and I arrived on site and had finished everything by 1:45. I then pulled out of the yard, parked up in their car park and looked for further work. And it didn't take very long to get a job. Before I explain the job I've got, I'll explain the context. So I'll stick a picture on of the area, sort of a wide angle lens view of the area, and then a more narrow view showing me and people around me. There's quite a lot of drivers active on the CX where I am in Rotherham. And as I was coming up for the last sort of half an hour, 3/4 of an hour on the CX, I was looking at what jobs came up, and most of the jobs were coming up from either Sheffield, Doncaster or Wakefield, and then there's a few other sort of ones from Halifax, or there was one from Rotherham at some point which I didn't get. So there wasn't a lot of jobs, and I wasn't that close to... Oh, there's a lot of jobs coming from Gainsborough as well, which is an hour away, over an hour away. I just dismissed all those. So there wasn't a lot of jobs. There was a trickle, but not a lot. And there was a lot of drivers. And my plan when I first looked at the CX was try and find a job as close to me as possible, do a cheap bid and just get moving ASAP. But this wasn't really anything. I bet a bid on a Rotherham job, £40, going somewhere like, I don't know, Bradford, let's say. It wasn't very far. It wasn't Bradford, but something like that. But I didn't get that job. And so the context is, I was beginning to struggle to find anything to bid on that was within my close area. So I was getting further and further afield. Doncaster was in scope, Sheffield was in scope. I wasn't really looking at Normanton at this point, but then a job came from Normanton, small van job going to Woking. It's 203.5 miles loaded on CX, and it's always those long jobs that kind of pique my interest. So I thought about that one. I thought, there's a lot of drivers, it's a nice job for me to do, what price should I go at? So I went with 80p per loaded mile and I rounded it up to the nearest fiver. So that came to 165, which is what I bid. And I thought I'll be happy with that if I get that. And quite quickly I got a call and was offered that job by a very nice guy, very friendly guy. And I said in the past, if you're friendly to me and pleasant, I'll be really thankful to the job for you. So he was good and I got the job, and I'm 45 minutes, about 34 miles away from the pickup. This is Normanton. It was only as I was driving towards Normanton that I realised where I was actually going to end up today. And Woking isn't actually London, but it's very close to London. And it does require me going around the M25 past Heathrow on a Friday afternoon. Now I've got some apprehension about doing that journey because of the time. But at the end of the day, I'm getting £165, 165 for this job. And it's a small van job, so really easy. It'll fit in my van really easily, and I'm gonna get in total gross 265 today. So by the time I've got home with the fuel, I should make a tad over £200 net, which is what I'm looking to do. So all of that is good. It's lovely weather, that's good. I'm having a nice day driving around, that's good. The thing that I'm a bit apprehensive about is getting stuck in very dense traffic around London, and I have a very slight possibility that I might be okay. So when I get down to the M25 Ring Road, it's going to be around about, well, I'm picking up at about 1:45. It's about 3 3/4 hours. Let's say 3.5 hours down to the M25, 3 hours at least. So it's going to be in the region of 5:45, 6:15 when I'm actually approaching the M25. And hopefully, because I'm going southwards, it won't be quite as busy, because often I think it's the northward road, the northward M25 at Heathrow, that's busier. So I'm hoping that I'm hitting it at the right time and in the right direction going down. And then I'm hoping that by the time I come back, it will have cleared and I'll have a reasonably clear run back up home. According to Google Maps, the whole of the journey from where I was in Rotherham going to Normanton, then Woking and then home is just over 7 hours, which means, assuming there's not a lot of delay with loading and unloading, I'll be home at around about 9 o'clock. Which I'm happy with that. So if that is the case, I'll be happy with that. It might be up to an hour later than that, depending on traffic. But I've got the job now, I can't change that. But I think there's an even chance that this will go without a hitch. And an even chance I might get stuck in traffic around London. Right, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm currently on the M1. Let's get to the other lane. And yeah, I'm currently half an hour away from my pickup. But it's gorgeous weather today, and I've been really enjoying doing my job today. It's been really pleasant. I mean, yeah, it's really pleasant. Right, I'll let you know how my day pans out when I know more. Cheers. Hello there, YouTube. So it is now about 20 to 9. I managed to get to the drop-off place in Woking just gone 7:30. The traffic down was pretty slow on parts of the M1, and parts of the M25, but it wasn't. It was still moving, but it wasn't standstill, but it was still delayed me somewhat. So rather than being on site at 7, I was on site at half an hour later. I called the contact a quarter of an hour before I arrived, and he said he wasn't on site, but that he would let. Sorry, but there were cleaners on site, and they would take the item from me. And when I arrived on site, he even called them to pre-warn them that I was going to be there. So they were expecting it, and it was really easy. At this point, I had to get some fuel, so I went to the nearest garage that does my fuel card and got filled up. And when I arrived at the garage forecourt, I had 1 mile left to go in my tank. I got a bit of food as well, because I'd run out of food with me today and I'm quite hungry. And then as I left to come back home, I worked out that it's going to be about 10:30 when I get home. I have done some stats for today, and I haven't made quite as much as I would have liked, but not very far off. I've actually made on average my third best daily average net income this year. So let's go through them stats then. So I filled up with fuel again, so I got a more accurate average price for today. It's 14.02. That's pence per mile. And then I have driven today, when I get home, 531 miles. 531. I will have worked for a total of 13.5 hours, and my gross earnings today from 2 CX jobs is £265, 265. I spent a bit more than I would have thought on fuel, maybe because I was driving fast on the motorways, well, fast for me, but it's £74.45, so basically £74.50, £74.50. I can't really round that down or up and feel either's accurate. That means that my net income, taking into account fuel costs, are £190.50. I'm going to round that up to 191 for purposes of my spreadsheet. I have also got my stats for the week. And from 3 days work, I've worked a total this week of 36 hours. I've driven a total of 1,373 miles, 1373. I have made gross for the week £790, 790. My fuel costs in total for this week were £193, 193, which means that my net earnings after fuel for this week is £597, 597. I have my earnings per mile are 43.52 pence for every mile driven, so a bit less than last week. And the most important figure for me, my net daily average earnings after taking into account fuel this week is £199, 199. And so last week's it was 200, and the first week of the year was 203. First week that I worked of the year was 203. So those are my best 3 average daily income figures for this year. and the best, and 2 of them came in the last 2 weeks. So I'm hopeful that that shows a trend towards better earnings moving forward. I haven't yet got myself a job for Monday, and next week I'm only working, I think, 2 days because of Good Friday a week from today. And next week I shall tell you a bit more about the next stage of my health journey. Probably I'll tell you that on Wednesday, I think. Right, let's get myself into the other lane now that we've passed that junction. So, I hope that you are all being successful, however you choose to define that word for yourselves. Thank you for listening to my video, and I shall see you again on Monday. Farewell, friends.